Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us for our second Facebook Live about our upcoming workshop, The Sensual Heart, coming up in just a few weeks, December 2nd through 4th here in Amsterdam. And this workshop is going to be a really beautiful 3-day tantric temple experience for gay, bi, and queer men and masculine identified folks. And today, Simon and I are talking about sacred sexuality. What the hell is that?
What the hell is sacred sexuality? I really liked of us coming up with what we're going to call this, of like, that's kind of what it felt like to me, of like, how the hell do we talk into this? How do I talk into something that feels deeply personal and deeply like this place of sacredness? My friend often described, I really like this expression, of using words to describe sacredness is like trying to pick up the ocean with a fork.
Well, we're going to try.
We're going to attempt this here and now. Watch this space.
Stay with us, folks. Yeah, well, I would love to dive right into it. And what does sacredness mean? I'm curious, Simon, can you get out your forks?
Get out my forks, see if my words are going to work for me. Sacredness for me, especially within this context, feels like connecting into something that is bigger than me, and trusting and building a trust that there is something holding me. And that can be like, I've really learned that can be whatever I choose to place that onto. Initially, that was very much me really tuning into the love that I feel from family and friends. And when I'm in kind of difficult places, tuning into the way that they hold me, especially hold my heart. And I found, kind of as I have done more work and done more discovery, that has grown into kind of just the feeling that something is holding me and something is supporting me that is beyond myself, that is beyond my thoughts, that I can feel this thing kind of almost around my body, around my heart particularly, that feels supportive. And from that supportive place, it's like this ever expanding potential that when I feel that place of support inside myself, it feels less risky to kind of go into kind of expanding, because it feels like nothing bad is going to happen to me there, because I learned to sort of trust myself. And to me, that feels deeply sacred. And there's a slowing down in that. I mean, we often talk about what it is to sort of slow down in these things. And I think in this sacred place, there's a real slowing down. And there's also a massive speeding up. Sometimes it can feel like this is moving so quickly. I'm kind of on the roller coaster of it. And there's something in that of like, yeah, and there's a big thing there of like deeply not knowing and not trying to know. Like, I had an experience recently when I was in a sacred space, and I kept going in my brain, oh, this space is about, trying to list off like, this space is about my integration, or this space is about my healing. And every time I came to those places, it became very obvious that this was my brain trying to control what this space is and trying to make me feel safer by trying to label and create a context for what this space is. And that seemed to go quite against the whole point of kind of really letting go into not having a clue, really not having a fucking clue. And that's when it kind of falls back into trust. Like, can I trust myself that if it goes too much, I say stop. I say I don't want to go any further. Can I trust that I'm held and supported in these places? And for me, that's where sacredness can kind of come into both being on myself and also being in a sacred space with others.
Yeah, I'm hearing a connection with something that feels bigger than you. Maybe that it's really a felt sense. It's not something that the mind can always rationalize, even though it might try to make sense of what's happening, but there may just be this inner knowing that there's something bigger than me at play. I've definitely had that experience. It can also feel like you're in an altered state, like our consciousness can change. Maybe feeling deeply connected to all beings, or being deeply connected to the earth, or being deeply connected to spirit, whatever language or experience you want to use around that. I've noticed for myself, when I feel that I'm really in a moment, in a space of sacredness, there is that natural slowing down that you describe, and I become very present, just really deeply present in the moment, really aware of what's happening. And I feel really alive. You know, there's so many times when we're rushing through life that we don't actually savor the moment in all of its richness and in complexity. And in these sacred spaces, I often feel very, very alive. And I might say kind of connected to the energy of life, connected to the source of life or the flow of life. And I can feel that the energy moving in me is coming from something that's much bigger. That I'm not just my body, I'm not just my ego, my, psychological experience, but there's something bigger, and it often feels very profound, and that there's like an intrinsic meaningfulness to the moment. And I think that's something that probably everyone can relate to at some point in life, whether it's being with a lover or family, a really significant moment where you just have this feeling of like, this is important.
Yeah.
Something's happening here that is meaningful outside of the social story we have around it.
Exactly.
So a wedding, for example, is meaningful on one level because we as a culture have declared that this is really important. Weddings are important for many reasons, but also when you witness that couple in that deep place of love, it often touches something. I can feel it right now. It touches something inside of you that's like, wow, this is important. And I think that's when we start touching into the sacred, that there is this intrinsic meaningfulness to life.
And I think when you're sharing that, it makes me think like a lot of this is about language. Like what we are referring to here as sacredness could also be like in depth of meaning. Like sometimes the words like sacred carry a lot of weight. They've kind of come from a weight of whether that is childhood and religious upbringings, whether that is associations with certain communities or new age practices. They carry a lot of stigma and weight sometimes. And that actually using your own language for these moments, I love the way you sort of describe the meaningfulness, the importance. And then the sacred, there's something that we think about as like the choice to remain in sacredness. And you talk there about savoring. And for me, that is such a key point, because I can be in, this feels important. This moment feels important. But can I then sink into that moment to savor that moment? And for me, that's the juice in these kind of spaces, because it's like notice that I can sit and stare into my partner's eyes and have a moment of sort of looking at each other, and suddenly it feels meaningful and my heart opens, and then suddenly I look away because it feels super vulnerable. It feels like, oh shit, this is really opening up into something, and oh fuck. Because what is the next layer there? What is the next level? What am I actually moving away from? And that's this savoring moment. Can I savor what is here?
Yeah, I'd love to like take a step back around how does sacredness show up in intimacy and in sexuality, you know, because especially as gay, bi, queer men, I can't tell you how many times I've heard the phrase, you know, for gay men, sex is like shaking hands.
Yeah.
Or it's a sport.
Yeah.
And I think we've all experienced that. This type of relating sexually, which feels really meaningless.
Yeah.
And there's the freedom in that. And, you know, a big part of the sexual revolution was actually shedding a lot of the baggage that Christianity put on us, that sex could only be within a marriage, that sex was so sacred in the Christian or Catholic context that it needed to be protected in these ways. And so the sexual revolution was like, screw that, you know, sex, you can have sex with anybody. And so there's a real liberation, and it's fun and it's pleasurable. And we have the right as humans to make that choice, which I'm fully on board with.
Yeah.
And then I think the flip side of that is the pendulum has swung this other direction where people just have a feeling that like, this just feels empty, you know, that I can have all the sex that I want and it's available on apps and wherever, but there's often this like deeper place in me that just feels empty, or it feels like it's not being filled or met.
And I think for me, like, it's not that it feels empty so much, but it feels like there's more. There's more. There's another string that there is in my bow. There's something else here that I could be getting, and I think that feels just as important. So regardless of whether there's an emptiness in your sexuality, like, can I? It makes me want to breathe into my sexuality. It makes me want to breathe into the connection, take more and taste more. And so there is this beautiful idea in sexuality where, what does union look like? Where we're not just going into, I'm kind of using this other body to get my pleasure met. And whether that pleasure is, I get a lot of pleasure in the other one being very excited, or whether that pleasure is in my body being excited. But like, how can sex really become like a union with this person? How, and then that's where it sits within this, how can it become bigger than the two people that are in this thing together?
Yeah. And I think that's another thing that people might have experienced is in a really, you know, juicy connection, sometimes you can drop into like a flow where it's like the only thing that you're aware of is what's happening with you and this other person. Like the whole rest of the world just kind of falls away and you're so deeply almost in a trance. And that's another beautiful way of touching into the sacred. It's like we're so deeply present with one another. And again, there's a sort of spontaneous arising of meaning, you know, and sometimes I've had connections with guys just, you know, on Grindr where it's like, whoa, or you'll just look into someone's eyes or you'll give them a kiss. And there's this thing of like, whoa.
I remember, I get it very with my body. I remember being in a festival once, and it was an exercise where you could kind of go around and sort of touch people, and occasionally you could hug people. And it was this one guy I'd had no connection with. I hadn't really seen before. And I went in and I just felt like hugging him. And the way his body fell into my body, it was just like, it was like, whoa, what the hell just happened there? It was no idea. He was blindfolded at the time as well. So he didn't even know who I was. And it was just, there was something in the way that our bodies connected that was like, Wow. Have
Yeah.
you had experiences in temples that really speak to this yourself?
You know, what actually feels more like present, it was not in a temple, but it was in a sex tent at Burning Man. So if you don't know, Burning Man is a big like music and arts festival. And there's a queer camp that often has a sex tent for men. And I love disco. And they were playing the best disco. So it's like, I want to come dance in this tent. And in the tent, there's like a U of mattresses where men are playing with one another. And to me, there's something about just being in an erotic space. And that's what you also get to experience in the temple, is even if you're not connecting with someone else, you're in this space where sex is happening. And that energy is filling the room. And I love dancing in these spaces. To me, there's something, it's an act of celebration. It's a celebrating life, celebrating freedom, celebrating love, celebrating pleasure, celebrating just fucking being alive. And I also feel very connected to kind of my legacy of queer men who've come before me. And there's something about this like classic disco music and being in this space that I just feel connected to generations of men who've come together in similar spaces, seeking love, seeking pleasure, seeking connection. And again, there's this sense of like, this is bigger than me, that I'm not just a guy dancing in a tent, but that I'm plugged into something larger that feels meaningful. And it's hard to explain why. It just is. It's meaningful simply because it exists, and that I care about this, and that it touches my heart in this really deep place. And so that's what I love about like the temple space is, to me, it's not even, it doesn't even matter if you're connecting with someone, you're in this space where this energy is kind of, you know, permeating, and you get to relish that, and you get to celebrate that.
And I think there's this thing with like sex where there's a lot of belief around it being behind closed doors, being in a very private space. And I think definitely in the kind of queer male world, or you're in a sex club or a sauna, or these things where they kind of happen in the shadows, and they happen with discretion, and like this will be kept very quiet in this. And there's something that can feel quite intense and self-conscious about the idea that, wait, am I going to go into a space where I'm going to have sex publicly, where I'm going to sort of like, is that what's expected of me in this space? Is that how I have to behave? Or sometimes the self-conscious is like, oh, I'm going to have to watch other people have sex, and I'm going to feel like, oh, am I meant to be doing that? And I remember, it reminds me the very first time I ever did that in kind of what I would call sex in the light. Because I've been to saunas, I've been to sex parties, but they're very in the dark, and in the kind of like, I'm very much placing myself as a sex object in relation to other people who have placed themselves in that place. And so, but doing it very in the light, where I am also seeing myself as a full person, connecting to myself. I felt super self-conscious at first, super self-conscious, but then realized that part of what was going on there is that I was not so comfortable with owning my sexuality in that moment, with being seen as a sexual being in that moment. And the support that was there that kind of allowed me to go, okay, what is happening here? And I don't have to have sex in this space. Like, what is it that my body and my whole being actually need in this space right now? And like you say, is it just to move and dance and be in joy of being in that space? I mean, or is it to, this is bringing up a whole load of shit for me, and I want to sit and talk about that. And actually this, like, there's something in the beauty of a temple space that allows for also, shit, I have not been looking at this part of my sexuality and I'm blocked here. And now I'm with people that this is getting triggered and activated in the space. And I'm with people that I can actually talk about this for the first time. And I can go into, what the hell is this about? Why am I blocked? And I think that is one of the big, deep potentials of these kind of spaces. And I think when we think about sacredness and sacred space, it can often have this feeling of kind of like, oh, I'm up in the clouds, I'm in these kind of bliss states, I'm in this kind of like love and light space. But it's not just that. And it's like how the excitement of these spaces, how can it engage like the fullness of who I am, which includes my shame, which includes my embarrassment, which includes my fucking anger at not being able to do the things that I'm looking at those people that are doing that thing over there, and I can't do that. And why? And that is the intention of the temple also, is to hold space for all of these parts of you, all of these things that might be standing in your way of like living the life of pleasure and of freedom that you're wanting to live in.
Yeah, I know I've been in, sex clubs, saunas, where I see all of these other people connecting, and then I get envious, insecure, bitter, scared, judgmental as fuck. And that keeps me from enjoying it.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of the temple and the sensual heart is, it's like, I'm feeling this. I can talk to someone about it. Maybe I want to just sit with somebody. Maybe I want to hold someone's hand. Maybe I want to scream. And we can let that out. And then it doesn't have to keep playing out and repeat on our minds.
Yeah.
And when you do, it allows you to just drop deeper into your body and also into your heart, into your emotions.
Yeah.
And that's where you get that freedom that you described, that thing of, yes, I can see all of these other people connecting erotically, and I don't have to be jealous or envious, but I can be in incredible awe of just how fucking beautiful this is.
Completely.
And how incredibly blessed I am that I get to be in a space with so much love and so much pleasure and so much freedom. And when we open to that, it's like, that's when I really touch into the divine. There's just, I just cry. There's just a sense of, oh my God, I am so lucky that I just get to be here.
And I love the way you sort of talk about it, because it feels so full. And to just say, this is why we do this over a weekend, because it takes time to feel trust, to feel openness, to feel connected enough to the people in the room and to us, and to have trust for us about whether we're able to hold that space. So this is why we have on the Friday night, we have a get together, and all day Saturday, we spend basically doing exercises that train how to really be in trust of yourself and of the group in that temple space. And then the temple space itself, I think maybe we should talk about kind of like practically, what the hell does it look like? Because we're very much in the conceptual and the fairy and all of this stuff, but like actually practically, what does it look like?
I mean, first off, in what is a temple? So in this space, there are different areas for people to explore different ways of connecting. There will often be a space for cuddling. There may be a space for more erotic play. There may be a space to get emotional support. There might be a space for just eye gazing with someone. Like, I just want to come into connection with you without needing to say anything. There may be spaces for specific types of erotic play that people are curious about. And you're really invited to slow down and tune in to like, what space might be calling to me right now. And we might have scripts that think, I need to go into the sex space, or I'm definitely not going into the sex space. And here it's like you're invited to just slow down and like really tune in. It's like, okay, yeah, I've got the stories that typically run in my mind. What am I feeling in my body? And maybe who's calling my attention? Can I get really curious? And can I be brave to approach that person or to be approached? And for me personally, what it often looks like is feeling attraction of some sort and not necessarily knowing what I want to do with that. Of like, oh, here's this person I'm attracted to. I don't know what I want. Can we just sit and eye gaze for a few minutes? I just want to connect with this person's energy. I want to feel safe with them. I want to start opening up. I know I can be very guarded, and I can easily go into sex from a very guarded place. And so it's like, I want to just actually show this person who I am without needing to explain it in words. And from there, often a desire naturally arises of like, ooh, you know what I would really love to do with you?
And that's the beauty of the creativity that comes up, like trusting the idea that then appears in that moment.
Yeah. And that's another, I think, piece of sacred space is there's often just a real natural creativity that flows out. And if you don't think of yourself as someone who's very creative, often when we drop into these deep places of presence, it just starts flowing. There's like a magic to it.
Completely. And in the space itself, like we play really good music. And like I think that's sort of an important thing. Like we take you on a musical journey as well that holds the space together, that gives you space. Like whether you're in cuddles or in emotional things or sexual things, or you just want to move. For me, there's such a beauty of like music as a container, as a way to hold you, as a way to carry you through, and the space we decorate to be beautiful. It's quite sumptuous. Like there's candles and fabric everywhere, and our intention in space is to make it welcoming and to make it juicy in itself. And we want that to be the gift that we are also bringing for you, who's going to be part of that space.
Yeah.
And we bring in some beautiful food halfway through. It's really, oh my God, the last temple, there were these beautiful moments of people in sexuality while we brought out tray of profiteroles and eating kind of profit. Like there's something to bring food in, to bring that extra sense in. Oh, it's just juicy and wonderful. And I just think about that wonderful last temple where there was able people to be in eroticism, but then they had like a tea station where people sat and drank tea together and ate fruit and ate beautiful food in that. But there was this held softness in it that gives you permission to be exactly how you want to be.
I think that's really it. There's no right way to be in the temple. And I think this is also something around the word sacred. You may hear the word sacred and think like there's dogma attached. You know, I grew up Catholic and I would have experiences that I would describe as deeply sacred. And then I got a lot of church teaching that told me what that experience was. And in the temple, you're really invited to be really curious about your experience and to make meaning of it in a way that feels right for you.
Yeah.
You know, that Simon and I are available to help you maybe process through that. But oftentimes these experiences are beyond words. Yeah. You know, if you think back to moments in your life when you've just felt that incredible sense of like, whoa, something's happening here.
Yeah.
You get to just hold that and you get to make meaning of that in whatever way you'd like. And maybe you have an incredibly deep, meaningful connection with someone. You can talk about what has that meant to you? How has that felt for you? What has that brought up, without needing to move into the trappings of, "Oh, this was meaningful, thus we're going to apply certain labels."
Yeah, completely. And I think that's the place. It's like we make our own meaning. And this gives us a space to do that and to be in a contained field in that as well. That actually this could be all that it is in this moment. But what do I take away from that? How can I grow? What does that taught me for the rest of my life that goes beyond just this temple?
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
fun. I love these explorations.
me too. And I kind of want to close just by saying, like, I'm like an ex-Catholic, and some people say recovering Catholic. I had a lot of skepticism around spirituality and spiritual language coming from my upbringing. And I think the invitation here is, what does it look like for you? How does it feel for you to just be present? To just be present and see what shows up. And oftentimes it's really, really beautiful. That's why I'm doing this work. This is really what has motivated me, is these experiences of, oh my God, this is so profound and so simple. And I want other people to taste that. And so that's just the invitation. It's like, come be present with us. Come explore. Yeah. So if you are curious, again, it's happening 2nd through 4th of December. I'll have a link in this video if you want to learn more. And if you are unsure or you are curious, if you have questions, please send a message to Simon or I. We are really, really happy to speak with you and share a bit more about the sensual heart, and also really see if this is the right thing for you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're really open to whoever wants to come, and whatever challenges or excitement might be there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. Till next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.